All right, final game in this Week 12 preview. We got TCU at BYU, 10:15 p.m. Eastern Time on ESPN, a late-night ball game that we've got in the Big 12. And the storyline to know is BYU is clinging to a spot in the Big 12 title game right now. BYU started off the year with a perfect 8-0 record, the first time in program history that BYU started 8-0 in back-to-back seasons. But BYU was embarrassed this past week on the road against Texas Tech, losing 29-7. But even with the loss, BYU still controls its own destiny in the Big 12 race. As long as BYU wins their final 3 games, they'll secure a spot in the conference title game where it'll most likely have a rematch with the Red Raiders. But if the Cougars lose at all over the next 3 games, their hopes of making it to Dallas and securing their first ever college football playoff berth could evaporate, considering how wide open that Big 12 conference is right now. This week's game against TCU is a major first step because right now the Horned Frogs are 6-3 on the year, and right now, according to PFF Power Rankings, are a top 25 team in college football.
Yeah, no, I mean, for BYU, the stakes for this game would be even higher had TCU beaten Iowa State last week. That it would be even higher, but with 3 losses, they're basically done when it comes to the conference, but still very much a threat with a dangerous offense and an odd matchup here that we're going to have in the ground game with TCU's run defense. But I think for BYU, I mean, that's the story. The same thing we had earlier with Cincinnati. You win out, you're golden. You're going to get to play Texas Tech again. You take a second crack at it. And I do think when it comes to BYU, that game was not some indictment on, because some people are going, oh, they're frauds or this or that.
No, absolutely not.
No, that was just about how good Texas Tech is.
Yeah.
I don't know that anybody's going in there and they're going to beat that defense. So I think it's more just about BYU, Kalani Sitake getting this team together, trying to bounce back against another good team. And you look at it, TCU, you get through this one, all right, then you have the huge game here against Cincinnati, and then after that, I like BYU's chances against UCF at home the last week of the season. So, same thing, BYU or Cincinnati, you go 3-0, golden, you're going to play Texas Tech. It's that simple.
I think BYU, too, at 11-1, maybe even if they lose Texas Tech again at 11-2, they could still be a playoff team.
There's a case. There is a case.
They should be a playoff team right now in the rankings tonight. I should say that right now.
And that'll be one of the interesting parts is how far do they fall? Because, yes, they got dominated. They sure did, no question about it. But, again, I still think that says more about how Texas Tech should move up, possibly up to maybe number 6, right, as opposed to BYU taking this big fall, right? I don't think they should. They went into last week, number 7?
Yeah.
And where did you have them when you did the thing on Sunday again? 10?
I had them 9.
Yeah, I don't think they should fall below maybe number 10.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I think that just shows you how good Texas Tech is, despite the one loss they have.
Yeah, I think BYU should still be a top 10 team. We'll see what the playoff committee does tonight. I imagine they're going to be outside the top 10 in the playoff rankings tonight. Dalton, you have that BYU offense with Bear Bachmeier against TCU's defense. What you know on that side of the ball?
So at the end of the day, last week against BYU, what we talked about, or I should say against Texas Tech for BYU, what we talked about on Sunday was their inability to run the football, right? And in just about every game this year, they've been able to run the ball, get to the play-action game, just run the system the way that Aaron Roderick wants to for Bear Bachmeier. Now, you're going to have another challenge. Texas Tech, number 1 graded run defense in college football. Well, TCU is not far behind them at number 3. They have the 3rd best run defense grade in college football. Basically, every significant contributor to their defense has a run defense grade at 60 or higher. I mean, it's a full team effort. There's not really a weakness. They're fast. They tackle well. Bud Clark and even those guys in the secondary come flying down. Caleb Elarm-Zor from the linebacker spot, he's really good. 18th in the nation in yards per carry allowed. Yards after contact is a big one. Sometimes we talk a lot about yards before contact and stuffing guys at the line of scrimmage. Yards after contact per carry allowed, 4th lowest in the nation. This team, that's the big thing that tells me. Second-level defenders that are fast and tackle very, very well. This team wants to get L.J. Martin going early in the game. They want to get Bear Bachmeier going in the run game a little bit, sets up the play action and everything, the layers to this BYU offense the way they want it. They still don't necessarily want to just drop back and throw the football. Bachmeier has gotten better in the drop back game, but you still want to run your offense step by step. BYU finding a way to punch through this TCU run defense with an offensive line that is still in the top 10 in run blocking grade this year, despite last week's efforts and the struggles they had last week in the run game. It's going to be a physical matchup when BYU, as it always is, when they're on the field, it's going to be physical, starting with that offensive line and trying to take the pressure off of Bachmeier as much as they can.
Yeah, I have TCU's offense. I'm looking at Josh Hoover and TCU's weapons against BYU's man coverage in this game. So the best part of BYU's defense has been its coverage unit. Right now, BYU is 32nd in the country in team coverage grade this year, and they're really good covering over the middle of the field, as both their starting safeties, and Tanner Wall and Falatal Satuala, have 80-plus coverage grades this year. But BYU is a little more average on the outside right now. Evan Johnson, who is a good player, he has a 73.4 coverage grade. That leads all BYU corners. Everyone else is like 65 or below, I believe, for BYU right now. And those corners are often left on islands for BYU as well, because BYU runs man coverage at a top 35 rate in college football at about 33% this year. Those corners on the outside will be tested this week against TCU, because right now TCU is 20th in receiving grade right now, and their top two weapons are outside receivers and Eric McAllister and Jordan Dwyer. McAllister leads the Big 12 with 817 receiving yards this year. Dwyer is 9th in the conference with 610 yards. And also, important to note, Josh Hoover has been very, very capable of making some tight window throws against man coverage. Josh Hoover leads the nation with 10 big-time throws against man coverage this year. So I'm really looking at BYU's outside corners in this game against Eric McAllister and Jordan Dwyer, and of course Josh Hoover, who has proven capable of making some tight window throws.
Yeah, no, I think this secondary is even greater than the sum of its parts. You mentioned the two safeties have been outstanding. And the one thing I need to note with Josh Hoover is, yes, he's been very good when it comes to a lot of the big throws and when he's getting the ball to Dwyer and McAllister. And don't forget Joe Manjack in the slot, too, is a good player. The one thing with Hoover that could hurt him in this game, you don't want to be doing this. He has 19 turnover-worthy plays this year, second most in the country. So I think there's going to be a big factor of, is he forcing those balls into that tight man coverage? Is he going to not turn the football over, not put it in danger? We've seen that hurt them at times at TCU. Josh Hoover, the ball security needs to be a little bit better, especially against this secondary that is very good. And he's going to have a lot of clean pockets to work with if BYU's not blitzing and sending those linebackers all over him. But I think that's going to be a big thing for Hoover too. Can those guys beat man coverage on the outside, and can he not put the ball in danger? 19 turnover-worthy plays in 9 games is rough.
Yeah, definitely. Ultimately, Dalton, will BYU continue to stay in the Big 12 title game with a win over TCU, or will the Horned Frogs create just absolute chaos in the conference of the win?
I think this game is certainly a threat, right? And I want to see how BYU bounces back, right? And I wonder if they'll look at that game last week and just kind of the same way I look at it, just go, you know what? They were better than us that day. Texas Tech certainly was better than them that day. But I think Kalani Sitake, they were in this spot last year where they needed to come back and get big wins. And obviously the loss to Kansas last year ruined their season. I think they're going to be really kind of grizzled from last season, the guys that are coming back, and there's a lot of them. And I think Bear Bachmeier is kind of just unflappable, right? He just continued. Even last week, he never seemed – I didn't think he ever seemed rattled. They just kind of couldn't execute because Texas Tech's defense was so good. I'm taking BYU at home. I think Provo's going to be loud. I think they know the opportunity that they have. And again, setting up that huge matchup next week here in Cincinnati, that's your season right there, is setting it up with this game, then going to Cincinnati and see where it goes from there. That's going to be a hell of a preview that we have next week. I think that's really what this comes down to, is BYU at home, just putting the pieces back together, getting it done. 30-23 Cougars.
I have BYU winning 28-27. I think it's going to be a really, really close game. I almost picked TCU to win, which I'm sure all the BYU fans would have loved if I did that, considering I've pretty much picked against BYU in almost every game this year.
You didn't pick them last week. You had Texas Tech last week.
No, I didn't. Yeah, so, and I also picked BYU to win against Iowa State, and I got that right,
That might
too.
be wearing off a little bit.
Yeah, I'm wearing off a little bit, but BYU fans are still, coming at me in the comment section a lot.
Well, so you probably just deserve it for something.
They probably are hoping I'm picking TCU in this one, but I'm taking BYU in a very, very close game. Could be another overtime game that we get. I think it might be a shootout between two pretty good quarterbacks in the Big 12. I think BYU, though, at home, which is, I think, key because they have one of the best home environments in college football, they'll bounce back from last week's loss on the road and win this game at home over TCU. So I got BYU winning 28-27.
What a game that would set up if we get BYU and Cincinnati both to win this week. What a game that sets up.
Yeah, we're trying to go to that game.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, I'm going. You're going?
I just applied for credentials. So
okay.
Yeah. Hopefully get in there.
Get it done. I'm going. I'm already approved.
Yeah.